Good morning, everyone. Great to see so many people joining us. Let's see here, we're getting ready to get started. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. One of the things that I think that we've all learned in these online settings is that time is of the essence, and people expect that promptness for sure. All right. Dr. Sampson and I'm going to go by Kelly. I'm assuming Dr. Sampson will probably go by Shannon as well. Let her speak to that. Just want to start by introducing ourselves and telling you a little bit about how we came to this point, and also just do the kind of overview of where we're going today. So our session, as you can see, is building online community. And it's something from day one of when we engaged in this program that we knew was going to be very important to build. And it was something that both our department and us as individuals valued. We wanted to make sure that the online space was not one that was seen to just build capacity to maybe be seen as that revenue space, but to really instead become the space where we could be more inclusive, build a community, and allow people to maybe come and join us in ways that they wouldn't be able to before. So we started with our program, which we'll use as kind of a foundation and example today, research methods in education, which is now research methods and policy in education, from actually a University of Kentucky distance learning grant. Dr. Sampson and I started that kind of from the get-go, and we're here today. So many years of learning, from starting with just the basics of quality matters instruction and doing reading, to experiential learning. And I serve as program chair of that, but I think more importantly, our entire program is built of the same faculty that are doing our online and in-person courses. And so we take that very seriously to try to figure out how to build community, not just online, but within those kind of mixes of audiences. So I am a professor in educational policy studies and evaluation. Been doing this for over 20 years, not necessarily the online, but the research methods. And just really excited to have you join us today. And I'm going to give a couple minutes to my colleague, Shannon, to tell a little bit about herself.
Thanks, Kelly. I actually came back to UK to help get this program, the research methods program, off the ground. The department had envisioned it and got the grant, as Kelly mentioned. And then I came in and helped both get the program pushed through, but also help to structure. We'll talk about the importance of consistent structure in the classes. That's one of the things we did from the very beginning, is implement some structures and some consistency of engagement and particularly accessibility. And so that was my introduction back to the university. I actually graduated from UK and then came back in 2014, 2015. And I'm now faculty in this department in educational policy studies and evaluation. And then most of my work is in evaluation. It's sort of like a research lab. We do external evaluation work for projects across the country, really. So I continue to teach online and continue to be very involved with this work. One of the things I would say about this work is we were involved in the very early how to do this work. We started and learned how to do it. We were using Zoom. It was very, hopefully you can hear me. My connection is unstable, but we were using Zoom.
Okay, I'm going to let Dr. Sampson know that her connection is really unstable. She may hear me, but I'll shoot her a text as well. And we'll let her jump back in here in a minute. So I will. The good thing is that we work together all the time, and this is part of that. Be ready when you're online. So I'll let her come back in and share a little bit of that story when she rejoins. But I'm just going to kind of move us through what we're going to do to kind of talk about to get us all. And please, I know there's a Q&A session. We're going to save times for Q&A, but if there's something that is pressing as we're going through, feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat so we can kind of address it in that real time if it blends. So I'm going to just give these and then we'll let Dr. Sampson check her connection there and I'll let her finish her story before we jump in. But our goals today are pretty straightforward. With you, we want to engage and kind of explore these strategies to build online communities. I feel like this is something that we've really grown strong at. I think it is one area where COVID actually taught us some lessons that we didn't even know we needed to learn. And then just in the whole reason for this, the way that we approach this is by enhancing student success, really retention and recruitment, and you'll see some of that. We want it to be a space that both students and faculty want to come to. We want it to be a space of both learning, but really that space of community to learn together. And so we're just going to go through some of these strategies and just talk through all the key strategies, the importance of it, and then, like I said, really open it up to learn a little bit from each other and maybe to explore some of the examples that we provide today in more detail. Dr. Sampson, did you want to say anything else? I'm not sure if you're back or not, or I can keep moving forward. Yeah. Okay. So let's lay the framework and how we kind of go at this. And I would say I'm a big fan, I'm a measurement person in terms of my own research. So I'm going to operationalize some terms as we go through. So when I'm speaking to we really do have a commitment to these aspects across all of our department and any faculty that we kind of intersect with in terms of teaching these courses. So we do have programs on campus that we work very closely with. So it extends beyond just educational policy studies and evaluation, where Dr. Sampson and I are both housed. But we also work across the university, and some people even on here are some partners that we've worked with in the past. So when we start this, we really think about why does it matter to us? Because we're big fans of if you know the why, then you figure out the how. Anytime that we are in the College of Education, so we like to really approach these things from kind of that theoretical and practical lens. So why do we want to think about community in the digital learning space? Well, we want to boost motivation and engagement. The more that you feel part of something, the belongingness research would show us this, the student satisfaction research would show us this. The more that you feel part of a community, the more likely you are to participate. That's going to increase your learning activities. It's going to enhance satisfaction. The other thing we know from a research standpoint is in those online settings, students might be less likely to fill out your course evaluations. You don't usually have that point, especially if you're in an asynchronous or kind of that hybrid mode where you're not maybe always in the same space to kind of say, oh, do this. The other thing is that the feedback feels different lots of times. So all of these things we're doing to kind of boost that motivation and engagement. The goal here to think about is to increase accountability. You want your learning community to have a sense of responsibility. And I always say this is a two-way, in the sense that lots of times in this online space, we see that things get produced, or there's like these check-in points, but there's not that constant kind of contact, as I would call. So increasing accountability, both from the student side, but also from the instructor side, that we are staying on task, that we have these deadlines, that we're responsible to each other. So in a community, you don't let each other down. And so that really is a big part of that. Reducing isolation. I think that this is one of the things that we really found when we were shut down during COVID is these online spaces became some of our strongest opportunities to build community, and they reduce that isolation. When you're doing online work or you are in a separate space from maybe your on-campus colleagues, figuring out how to not feel isolated, filling out how to not have to do it on your own is really important. And so that's another reason why we're so focused on building community. Encouraging diverse perspectives. And we're not going to go into a lot of things, but we know that we are currently in a very social, political driving time in our nation. And without having that community, without knowing each other, even being able to enrich, to have those diverse perspectives, to have kind of these viewpoints, and different people teach different things. So we teach everything in this from like some of our core courses, for example, are sociology of education. There's going to be some different theories, some different perspectives in that. We are wanting to create an area where we can have academic discourse, where we can actually learn from diverse perspectives, engage in rich discussions, really broaden viewpoints, and maybe anchor back into your own, but with that kind of strength of knowing others. So without that space of building community, what it becomes is lots of times dashboards and discussion posts of really just what I would call kind of AI generated. Oh, this is good. This is great. Where if we build community, people start to engage with each other and you really see those diverse perspectives grow, which I think is critical. Building professional networks. And you're going to see from some of our things. One of the things that we do in all of our classes that are online and any kind of things that we teach is we build a space for kind of that community networks. And in that, we mean if you're going to a seminar, if you learn of something, share it here. If you hear of a job posting, all these kind of things. So we basically have a space in all of these classes where we do that. We also try to invite them into different spaces where they can grow these professional networks. But without that community and without that connection to each other and to the whole program, to the other faculty, to the other students, you don't get that growth, you don't get that mentorship, and you don't get that networking. So that is definitely a key area for us. And from a programmatic standpoint, and from what we like to say to our students is, it's really hard to measure success, but we typically all agree that the finish line is some type of success. So that that point to completion, if you come into a program, one of the shared goals is usually completion. If you have community, then you improve that retention and completion. And like I said, that is a really key factor in the literature. We see it everywhere. You're going to be more likely to persevere when you have others in your corner, when you see different people accomplishing things that you want to see, and when they see you doing that. Also, when you know who your faculty are and they know, and you know they care about you. All of these things are going to improve retention and completion. And I always say, one of my lines that you'll hear me say probably throughout this, a few things that I truly believe in our program does, that retention is the best recruitment technique that you could possibly have. So this is kind of the way that we frame the way that we approach this community in the digital learning space. Okay. Dr. Sampson, I see you're back. Did you
I
want to?
am. I'm on my phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to introduce myself or wait till
I do. I think that would be great, actually.
Okay. I don't know how much you all were able to hear before, but I joined the university in 2014, 2015, came actually to join the work of getting this research methods in policy degree that had been envisioned already by the department I came in to help get it over the finish line and get it in and approved at the university level, and then to build out the shells and all the material for it was an online, or it is an online and asynchronous program. And so that's what brought me back in. And that was pre-COVID, of course. And we were early in getting Zoom involved in our classes. We joined those early sessions of, I think the university was just really engaging in Zoom work. And I was trying to say earlier, I don't know, I wish I would have thought to buy stock in Zoom, because of course, as we all know, everyone was using it just a few years later. But that we had established already this cadence of community in an online space. And so when COVID hit, it really was not a hard transition at all for our students, because that's how we were operating anyway. So I now teach in this research methods degree. I teach evaluation methods, and I also am the evaluation center director for the college. So most of my work is actually in working with stakeholders and doing sort of like research for and run a research lab. So, okay.
Yeah. All right. So like I said, full transparency, I'm a measurement person. So I like to kind of anchor in where we're coming from, what we're doing. So why community matters. I kind of said this, but just so that we're all on the same page. Knowledge sharing, clarifying concepts, strengthening connections, expanding understanding, improving retention. So we truly believe that it can transform a program into a valued experience. And I think that's what it's all about. That's really a key word, is creating these experiences, that it's not just a class, that it's not just something, it's not just a program, you're not just checking boxes, but instead that this is an experience that students and faculty are proud to be part of, and that they want to promote, they want to engage in. And that is kind of the core of where we're like, this is why community matters.
All right. So I'm doing this on my phone, and hopefully I can read a little bit.
And if you need a tag, you're it, Shannon. Just let me know.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank
All
you.
right.
So I'm going to share, and hopefully Kelly will jump in as well, as we think through some of the strategies that we use. I'm going to share some specific strategies that I've found to be helpful in my own classes. And then I know Kelly has a lot of ideas as well. So Kelly, feel free to jump in as I share. But we have with Campus Connection. Oh, you might go back one. So we do try to help the students in our online classes feel like they're part of the campus community. So we have a lot of opportunities within our department, and we typically make online options available for students to join. The work that we do, our classes are not only online, but they're also asynchronous. And so students are engaging in our courses at all times of the day and sometimes of the night, because we do have students from around the world. But we try to help involve them in departmental activities by opening up online options for them. Something else we've done is look for conferences, regional conferences, where students can come together. This actually, a couple of years ago, we had a research conference, a regional research conference, where a lot of students came. We took students from the University of Kentucky who were physically in Lexington, and then many students from around the US also joined us. So all these students knew each other in the online spaces, but then they were able to converge at that regional conference. And so I think that really solidified community. It was I think we can look back to that experience as being something that was kind of a good stepping stone for the growth of the community within our online space. In terms of engagement touch points, we feel like it's important to maintain connection through regular communication, structured milestones, and timely feedback, keeping our students engaged throughout the journey. Some of the things that I'm doing right now, I have a weekly engagement activity every Monday in my class. I post something, and students engage with that with each other, oftentimes on a discussion board throughout the week. So each week it's something new, and they know that they're going to get something on Monday morning to work with throughout the week. I also have my course is structured to where they have content and they can engage in that content as quickly as they want, although they do have due dates, so they can't go as slowly as they want, but they can move as quickly through the content. But then we have concurrently a project that everyone is working on throughout the class. And that's where we have the touch points for that project, that there are checkpoints throughout the semester, and students have an opportunity to join live sessions. If they want to get live help, they can join live peer review sessions, and then they turn in their project along the way so that they can get feedback. So that helps me stay engaged with their work. It helps them stay engaged with the course and on track in terms of the content. And then one of the things that I've been trying to figure out how to do is how to encourage students to join the live sessions that are synchronous in this asynchronous environment. And so this semester, I feel like it's been working really well, is that I've given them lots of different types of opportunities to join live sessions. I actually posted all the live session opportunities I created in Zoom. I created the sessions, and they have to register for them. So I can see who's registered, and they can get them on their calendar from the very beginning of the semester. And those live sessions are connected to their project work. I tell the students all the time, if you don't see a session that works for you, but you want to join one, let me know. We'll figure out a way to add a session at a time that's convenient for you. And usually that would be 1 or 2 sessions that I need to add. And then I have required this semester that they attend at least one, but they only have to attend one. The feedback within the teacher course evaluations is that students might complain about having to show up to a live session, but when they do show up, they typically say, I'm so glad I did. And they'll put that in the evaluations, that I'm so glad I showed up. So this semester, they probably have 15 times they could show up to a live session, but they only have to show up once. But once they come once, they tend to continue to come. And so that's something I've put in place this semester that I feel like has helped with that engagement. And it helps me get to know them. I feel like they could go online and do YouTube and learn a lot of this material, but we are in a community and they have access to a faculty member. And so trying to figure out ways to help them engage with me and with their peers is important to us.
Yeah, Shannon, wouldn't you say that kind of in that touch points that while we all do it a little different, I think one of the things that we definitely share is that structure matters, and that they need to have kind of, so for example, in my intro stats class, which has just so about 120 students enrolled in it online. Sometimes it goes up to 150, but that's kind of our gauge there. We have, I have both suggested due dates within kind of my units that let people kind of know where, if they're on track, but there's always hard due dates. Like, this is when this unit needs to be done. And why we do that is so that everyone is kind of working, like Dr. Sampson was saying, in the same space, that we don't have someone that's 3 units ahead. And so when they do engage in the community, they're talking about the same things too. So there's some mixed literature about that, but I can tell you that we've ran these classes differently, where it's completely open, work at your own pace, where it's like moduled up. And I think that's something we can talk about more as our community here. But what we find is the community is stronger when students are working in the same space. So having those, like Dr. Sampson was saying, these assignment due dates, these times when things are expected that do touch points is really important.
One other kind of engagement touch point, and also to give students an opportunity to see who the community is. One of the things, I see the students across the class, and sometimes they'll notice each other, maybe in a discussion board, but my classes are also large. And so sometimes I'll put them into the discussion groups so that they aren't having to respond to 50 people. And so then there was one semester where a student said, how many people are in this class? And I realized they had really no sense of who was in the class and where they were. So one of the things I started doing a few semesters ago is, at the beginning of the semester, they take a little survey. Where are you? Why are you taking this class? and it's cross-listed. So they really are from lots of disciplines. And after I get that information within the first week or so, I just pull their survey information and I do a maybe 5-minute presentation that just says, here's where you all are. Here, I have a map. This is where you are across the United States. These are the disciplines that you come from. These are the things you hope to learn in the class. And I think it helps for them to get to see who we are and hopefully, again, to feel like they're part of community. I haven't gotten that question of how many are in this class for a while. We do offer in our classes, because our classes are large online, we have TAs that help us with the work. And we have a lot of open forums, office hours. We offer, I will say, in this online asynchronous world, office hours are hard because sometimes students cannot come at the time that I've set. So I have begun in the last couple semesters to offer these live sessions at different times. And then I also have Calendly so that they can sign up and meet with me when it's convenient for them. So I just found that students were not coming to office hours, but they will come to a specific topic. So that's how we're doing those now. They will also engage with the TA. So those lab sessions are helpful. Kelly, do you want to say anything about that? Because I know they really value those lab sessions.
I was going to say I think that if I was going to give here's my big suggestion for building community, having, and it's hard, and we've had to be creative sometimes with how to support TAs and those type of things, but the TAs having those open lab session, those forums tend to be probably one of our most positive feedbacks that we get. Also, it is a liaison in some ways. The TAs are really good at nudging us and saying, hey, I think you need to jump into this space. Or there's also that kind of collaboration as well. But I think I always say I would not teach the large section stats classes without a TA. Because I think it's so important to have someone dedicated to that space that's kind of watching it in a way. We all are, but we're busy, and that's basically their job, is to make sure that that there's this kind of constant checkpoint. And lots of times these are students that have experienced, these are advanced methods TAs. And so they've experienced it both from the student standpoint, and now they're on the other side of it. And just that kind of having a foot in both sides is very important in terms of building that community. So yeah, and I think like Dr. Sampson said, those one-on-ones, being able for students to schedule, most of us use, a lot of people use Calendar. I've used Sign Up Genius, but just to put out kind of links where students can grab time if office hours don't work, because they can't just walk by your door and see that your door's open sometimes. I do things, and the TAs do as well, that if I am sitting in open office hours in my office, I'll turn my Zoom room on or my Teams room on. And so students know that I'm available, and sometimes they'll jump in that way. So just being accessible, I think, is really important. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Sampson.
Mm-hmm. You can go to the next slide. So the course structure matters. One of the things Kelly mentioned that we did as we began to structure our online classes was we did attend the Quality Matters training, and we learned about just the importance of structure. And we have found that we have a general consistent structure across all of the courses that are online. But I try very hard within my class. Every module looks very similar. I always say I want the difficulty of this class to be the content, not the navigation. So it's very important for us to have it as clear and concise as possible, and as consistent, I think, across modules. So a few things that we also value within this space is the timely posting, that materials are consistently published on schedule. My students do have a syllabus, and so they can watch when things will be posted, but it is very important for them to be able to get what they're getting when they're expecting to get it. We try to stay, if it's something where things are rolling out over time, I usually try to have things up within a month before things are due. With the consistent structure, again, like I mentioned, that layout across courses and within courses is helpful for a student. The way I structure my class, and Kelly, you might want to speak to this too, but I have a front page that just has basic information, how to get in touch with me and with the TA, a little welcome video. And then when they get into the content modules, at the very top, that's where they'll always find their weekly engagement activity. and then the content modules that they're working their way through. And then I have the course project posted, and they can see the checkpoints, and from the very beginning of class they can see all the things that are due for that final course project, and they're working through that. And then within each content module I put a very brief 2 to 3 minute introduction. I think those videos are very helpful, and I try to keep them very short, so they can be very boring if we just get on there and lecture. So I think probably my longest video is maybe 12 minutes, to where just giving concise content, helping them structure. I do find that those brief overview videos kind of help students know how to navigate their material. But yeah, just that the introduction, a little video, and then content, and then here's what you should have learned. And then I always say, here's what's coming with your project. So here's how to make sure you're on track with that. That's for my class, because they are working from a project standpoint. Kelly, do you want to speak any about how you structure your class?
Well, I think just mainly, like, as we think through this, again, it's linking back to kind of our big picture of like Dr. Sampson said, we don't want them worried about like that the material is inaccessible, that it's not ready, that it's those kind of things. Because what we want them to do is come into the classroom setting the same as our in-person students and engage in the learning and engage in that community. And so I think all of these things go to that. My courses are set up very similarly. Every module is set up in the same format. There's not, variation between the structure. There's variation between the content, the questions that we ask, the, expectations of assignments in terms of level of difficulty, but not in kind of like what Dr. Sampson's talking about, the basic flow, that because it should not be more difficult for these students to walk into their online community any different from walking into a classroom that looks very similar every week. So that's kind of the way that we are approaching this, is we're trying to build that steady community arena so that all of the focus can go on to the things that we would want them to have happen in that learning environment.
The blueprint shell, that is something that we have created as a department, and so when somebody is stepping into a class, that it's not a blank slate, that there would be some elements that are consistent across the classes, both I think to help the faculty members structure their class, but also again so that the student walks in and it feels comfortable. It doesn't feel like an unknown space. With resources available under the blueprint shell, one of the things I've done, actually something we did when we first built this online degree program, was to make sure that we had set up for success resources. And so that's something that I have at the very top banner. I used to have it as an initial module that they would work through, but some students at this point, they really are already set up for success. So I encourage them to work through a checklist, but I'll leave it at the top of the top banner, always has set up for success. So as they have questions about technology, if they have questions about what resources are available on campus and off campus with like the libraries, all that is available as a setup for success link within my main page. So key resources, contacts, and updated links readily available. Something else I have is a running list of resources. So it's another button on that main banner, where they can always go in and see updated resources that are available. And sometimes the weekly engagement activity is go in and look at those resources and see what's been added, and then talk to your group members about the kinds of things that you're seeing that look interesting, that apply to you. And if you know somebody else in this course that would find that material engaging, point that out. So I always tell them in their discussions, recognize that you are in conversation with people. Always discuss in conversation. You're not just putting discussion up there. You're always thinking about interacting with other people in the class. In terms of accessibility and inclusive, Canvas is good to show you when things aren't accessible. So we really do work to address diverse learning needs, those adaptable materials. When we create videos, putting the captions on there, making sure that if I do a PowerPoint or some kind of a presentation, that they have that PowerPoint available to them. That we're thinking about color, making sure that people can see things. And then with I think the clear and logical design, just that simple flow, clear instructions, consistency, engaging multimedia. I mentioned already that brief brief videos are always helpful, and then feedback ready. This is something I'm trying this semester. Is we do have a lot of opportunities for students to give feedback to us. Well, actually, I have opportunities to give feedback to students. Students have peer-to-peer interactions. And this semester, I'm trying to be less prescriptive about how their peer reviews work. So I'm letting them reach out to other people in the class if they want to do that, if they have a colleague that wants to look at their work, if they want to work with each other. So I'm finding that giving them a little bit more independence and autonomy in how they have their work reviewed has been helpful. I think it feels more natural to them. The other thing that's important about feedback is mid-semester, we do get feedback from the students. How's this class going? I'll see it in Dr. Bradley's courses. Give me some feedback on what's working well for this class, what's challenging to you, what would you like to see work differently. I will invite CELT in mid-semester. They'll come in and they'll give feedback, gather feedback from the students, and then work with the faculty to think about how to structure the class for the rest of the semester. And that tends to be very helpful because students can see that you're not only working through the class, but you're also responsive to making sure that it really is working well for them. All right, Kelly, what else?
Yeah, I would say too, that does build the community, because the other thing is, and Dr. Sampson and I are both survey researchers as well. If we both believe that perception drives action. And so being responsive to that feedback lets those students know that you're on the other side, and it lets us know that they're on the other side. So it goes into all those things that we're saying about building that community. I know, Shannon, you see it too. I'll be reading through my discussion posts and engaging in one-on-ones, and how many students say, it's so nice that you're engaging with us, that there's a person here. Like, I know who you are. And when they say that, I always question in my brain, like, so you're taking classes where you don't know who's behind the screen? And we do know that's the case if you look in the literature. So it's just something I think for all of us, both on the student side and the faculty side, to think about. We want to know who's on the other side of the screen or who's in our community. So I think it's an important thing to kind of continue to challenge ourselves with. So I want to give some time for questions, or just for general kind of feedback here. So just want to kind of bring us to best practices, pulling all of this together, really using these digital platforms for community building, forums, virtual meetups, any collaborative tools. The note, lots of you will use the Post-it note, digital dialogues, those type of things. Anything to basically, what I say, humanize those online spaces. And while we live in these a lot, I think we forget kind of that interactive humanizing part of it. You can practice in a space and not engage in a space. You can work through a space and not want to be in that space. So I think those kind of things, like Dr. Sampson was saying, the video intros, really encouraging students to tell things of why they're there, what they want to get out. Post pictures, even if they don't want to post a picture of themselves, post a picture of their pet, just something that lets other people engage with them beyond just, hey, we're in this class together. And then connect the practices, everything that you do, to program outcomes. And that could be both from the student and the faculty side. Like we said, why are you in this class? What are you doing? Those kind of things. Keeping in mind retention, positive feedback, recruitment benefits, graduation rates, all these things are linking back to our classroom the same in an online community as they are in an in-person space. And that's something that we, I think, constantly have to think about. And one other thing I would say to this is a best practice that maybe isn't on here, but fits through all these, is like Dr. Sampson was saying, welcoming others into your space. So we actually peer review each other's courses. Lots of times there's not just one faculty even in a course space. We'll have a second set of eyes on it. Our TAs review our classes. And programs like instructional design, sometimes students will come to us and say, can we use your course in our course that we're learning, like, to critique? And most of the time the answer is yes. If we build it and we're ready for someone to look at it. So there's all those opportunities as well. So consistent community building, engagement strategies, collaborative efforts. I do think there's no reason for us to isolate ourselves. Work with your colleagues, build online teams, leverage university resources. We say we're building these communities to avoid working in isolation for everyone. And I always say that it's not just our students that can feel isolated in these spaces. Lots of times we find our faculty that are only teaching online can have that same isolation because you're not getting that same peer-to-peer, student to faculty interactions that sometimes we are. You don't always see what I like to say, those aha moments, right? When you're in class teaching and somebody gets really excited about something. You can miss that sometimes. So making sure that you're kind of always anchoring back to engagement strategies, that community building, those touch points so that you don't have to miss those opportunities. And I always tell students, if something happens and you want to share it with me, record a little video, record a message, send it to me right then. Those kind of things that we're doing that collaboration constantly across. So that's kind of our sharing point. We would like to just open it up, of course, for any questions that you have of us, anything that maybe you've heard that you'd like to hear more details. We'd love to hear from you in terms of like what your biggest challenges are in building online communities, what tools or resources or strategies maybe have proven to be most effective for you, and how can we better collaborate to strengthen and sustain these online community efforts. This is a good question. So I will answer things. I'll read them out loud too, just in case, because we're all on different digital media platforms at the moment, from phones to iPads to computers. So it just says, is there an optimal size for class that fosters better community building and engagement strategies? And I felt challenged when working with a class pushing 50 students. So I'm going to first say, and I'll give a couple thoughts. I think that's where TAs, potentially team teaching, those kind of things is really important. And that is another strategy we actually didn't say out loud, that we've had our qualitative class, we've actually had faculty have 2 sections, but they team teach the sections together so that there's more eyes. So we also do those. I think you have to consider the course content. You want to make sure that you're not just loading students into a class again to check the box and they need the class, but that the class can be robust enough to, in this case, absorb 50 or more students. So it's very dependent on the class content. It's dependent upon the faculty's experience with that course content, with the online setting, how much support they have. If they're, and Dr. Sampson can speak to this, if you're redoing a course maybe or updating things, maybe that's not the semester to let 10 extra students in. So there are classes that we do, like my intro stats class, I feel very comfortable. Dr. Sampson shared breaking them into smaller groups within that to where sometimes they don't even know that they're in a class that's that large. Dr. Sampson, what else would you say?
So my class, I do teach one that runs closer to 50 and one that runs closer to 27, 25, 27. And they're both, the smaller one is it's project driven, and there is a lot of interaction with students and me wrapping my mind around a lot of different projects. So that is challenging, but I have found that I don't know about what's an ideal size, but I would say that it works okay. I think putting the students into smaller groups and then having these sessions to where probably I'm doing a live session once or maybe twice a week. My TA is also doing live sessions. And then I might have 5 students show up, 10 students might show up. But to me, that has kept it manageable because there is that consistent. And when I'm talking to them, I'm able to wrap my mind around better what their work is. And so I have found 25 to be an okay number. The one with 50, there's a lot more automation. And then I do try to engage with them. I find it harder to engage with 50 students on a discussion board and give them feedback along the way. So I try to create more opportunities to engage live. That's something I would say.
Yeah, I think those are great points, definitely. So I think that's kind of the navigation tool. Our program in general, 25 and less is considered kind of a what we would say not necessity to have a TA that we feel like we can handle. When you start tipping over, and this is probably a more direct, when you start stepping over that 25, we start asking what support you need to make this course manageable, to make it engaging, to build that community. And the other thing that we do as a department, pretty much, if we have a new junior faculty or a new faculty at any level that hasn't taught online before, usually regardless of the size of the course, they have some support. So we'll, even if it's just, 5 to 10 hours of TA support, and we put them with what I would call a more experienced TA, someone that has TA'd for a while and knows that online space. I think that's important too, to just think about that question of optimal size. So much of it goes to what skills are coming to the table, both from those leading the class, the experience with online. And that's kind of the way we do it. We almost, I say, triage the situation, but at the end, we want the students to have what works best. So sometimes those with us with more experience that maybe have a class of 50 might take a 10-hour TA to free up 10 hours for someone that maybe only has 18 in their class, but has never done it before, because we want the student learning experience in those communities to kind of grow and thrive. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm just reading questions too, which most of you can see them. Any specific apps in Canvas that people have seen to be successful? Yeah. What about you? Have any on that, Dr. Sampson? Different people use different things. I do a lot of statistical classes, so I do a lot of Java apps and different things like that to pull in to let students be like actively engaged with visuals and those type of things. I'm not sure exactly any other things you pull in, Dr. Sampson?
So I think what I was pulling in and using a lot was Jamboard, but that's going away. So
Yeah.
I when a whiteboards are are good. Self encouraged me to do some interactive reading. I think, and I have not tried it. So I'm curious if other people have used some of those plugins with Canvas. I really don't use a lot of the specific apps
Right.
available, but others may have thoughts.
Yeah, I'm paying attention to time here because we have a few minutes. The other thing that I think that I've found, and it's not specifically an app, but a tool, is that when you're in class or when you're in these one-on-ones and you get to interact and talk with a student. So one of the things I do use in Canvas actually is the record option. So when I'm reading students' papers or reading their assignments, I will actually talk through those that kind of give them that verbal feedback, the same as I would if I was in a one-on-one. So I do use that recording. It saves me time, honestly, and the students feel like it's more connected. Again, I feel like it builds better of that engagement. So that is something else that I use. Actually, another colleague introduced that to me, and I was like, oh, instead of writing all this down and then trying to make my notes, I just talk through it as I'm grading their assignments. And that seemed to be really, really helpful. And you can do those recordings in Canvas, which is really nice too. It's embedded in that grading option. All right. Well, we are coming up. We have about 2 minutes left. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. You can find Dr. Sampson and I both online. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm, pretty active on there. And Dr. Sampson, you're on LinkedIn as well, I believe. So is the Evaluation Center in our department. We're open to working with others. We are definitely always looking for those students that are seeking us. So send them our way. And we do have some research and publications around this work that we do too. And we'd be happy to share some of those as well. Dr. Sampson, anything else from you?
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for letting us share this with you. And have a wonderful day or evening.